The show is starting.
Here before you is an opportunity to plumb the depths of the mysteries that confound and intrigue us. A chance to ask the big questions. Dr. Hal is not concerned with questions of trivial matters or of facts that are easily gathered elsewhere. Dr. Hal seeks the questions that transcend fact. He stands before you, ready to take questions that used to be brought to wise and aged sages on distant mountaintops. These questions can now be asked from the comfort of your living room. No Sherpas required. Simply direct your favorite web browser to our new and simple-to-use website, AskDrHalShow.com, or click the Ask Dr. Hal button below our live Twitch broadcast. You will be spirited away to the magical Co-Fee portal, where all you need do is submit your burning question in the handy message field, and assign a monetary value you wish to place upon it. Our stage ghost will then convey your message live to Dr. Hal, and he will answer in the manner that only Dr. Hal can. Don't worry, we never sell, share, or solicit using your provided email address. PayPal will ensure that your valuable love offering goes directly to Dr. Hal. Links to submit questions and more can be found at our website, AskDrHalShow.com. Do not let this opportunity to consult a modern-day oracle, a seer for seers, a man steeped in the arts, sciences, and esoteric studies, pass you by. We present to you, through the very miracle of the internet itself, the one and only Dr. Hal Robins, now making house calls.
We're missing a part on there. I'm gonna have to bring that in later on in the show. I don't know what just happened.
Oh,
the
dear.
opening recitation
The
was,
opening recitation didn't come on. What?
it went
Oh.
through a vacuole, an aperture in the show.
That's a terrible, terrible development. I'm so sorry about that.
You have it listed somewhere. It was
I have it. I'll get it in there. But
September
We'll make
1st,
it.
1939 by Auden, which I thought was a good comment on the election. Actually, I learned it in 2016 after Trump was elected the first time. Well, I hope it turns up, but
I know
everything-
right where it is.
We'll
Just
pull
not
it
right.
from the ether like a string of handkerchiefs.
Well, let's innovate and answer a question now and come back to it later.
We're rolling with the punches. Hey, everybody,
That's
how
right.
are you? It's been an interesting month.
Yes.
So we'll do a couple questions first. I have Griffin's question first because
Yes.
I know he's someplace where it's already 0 dark 30. So
It's probably
Well-
3 a.m. where he is. So.
and he's a trooper staying with us. I'm sure.
We'll be
we're-
up burning the midnight oil watching this show.
I'm sure the people he works with tomorrow morning will appreciate the fact that he was here at 3 a.m.
Yes,
with us.
that excuse clears away all objections.
Exactly.
Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that first question. And while the good doctor is answering that, I will find that that recitation because it's a beautiful thing, and I'm sorry it's not there.
It's only temporarily
It
not
used
there.
to be.
And all of us are only temporarily here.
It was there just a minute ago,
I swear.
and then God took it.
So Mott's mutability.
It
It
was
said it was
God.
going out for smokes and it never came back.
It was God's will. It was Bob's will.
It is the will of Landru.
The will of Dobbs. So anyway,
Indeed, indeed.
I have a question, Professor Gofflin. I will bring you back in just a few minutes, and you'll do the next question for us. But I'm going to go ahead and start with Griffin for now. So let's
Sounds
go
good.
ahead and do that. Hello.
Hello.
And let's see. Let me find that question again. This is a $7 question, Dr. Hal, and it's going to be one that will be left open to interpretation.
Well, they all are in essence, but
But I
let's see.
will read it as it appears. So,
All right.
this is from our good friend Griffin, again, $7. How do you stop the pinks from harshing the vibe in the?
How do you stop the pinks from harshing the vibe in the? Well, for those who are not subgeniuses, and it is conceivable that some who are watching are not actually dyed in the woolly mastodon subgeniuses, pinks is an epithet to describe everyone who is not subgenius. Everyone who is not subgenius is in some degree a shade of pink, and we consider the pinks to be members of the conspiracy of everyone who is not a subgenius. And as you can imagine, these legions of people can indeed harsh the mellow of the, meaning everything that is not contained by the word pink. Well, the way to do it is, first of all, to ignore them, secondly, to confuse them, and thirdly, to tease out that small portion which inevitably is influenced by the far-reaching philosophical and societal changes instigated by the Church of the Subgenius itself. The word slack, a sacred word to us, since the subgenius must have slack, has been appropriated by large corporations, but one also sees it written in email communications. Such an attractive concept. Remind your pink friends that they too desire slack and that you have it. Why? Because you are a communicant with the Church of the Subgenius. And thank you for your question.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal.
Well, I don't want to keep the audience waiting any longer. We have the opening recitation queued up, so.
Well, let's go with that opening. Who would know that we anticipated it with a question?
So here it comes. Theoretically.
It's
Okay.
coming. I feel it
Any
coming.
moment.
What? No, hold on a minute. Let me take a look at something here. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, what is
we
there?
should.
Professor Gofflin, you know what? Do you have a question in mind for the good doctor?
I did have a question, as a matter of fact.
All right. Well, I'll tell you
Let
what.
me s-
Why don't we do that, and I'll let
Yes.
you two talk amongst yourselves, and I'll fix whatever
right.
the heck is going on
Let's
over
go
here.
on to that. It's good that we have top scientific technical assistance here.
Indeed, yes. The brightest minds of the Church of the Subgenius are on the case. So, Dr. Hal, I had a burning question for you from the top of my dome. What is the appropriate way to eat a fortune cookie? Do you read the fortune first, or do you eat the cookie first? And does this have any bearing on the efficacy of the fortune?
I have beliefs which are, I suppose, a kind of superstition connected with this subject. But when you get into the supernatural world, even in such a small degree as this, the world of normalcy, the world of physics, which we inhabit, does not entirely apply. the supernatural exists above and outside the natural, and miraculous coincidence and the convergence of concurring events can occur. Well, we do have
We
the
seem to
recitation,
have the
and it's ready
recitation.
to go. Perhaps I should hurry up my question. I think you should eat a fortune cookie with full acceptance of the fact that it may contain your fortune. That means you must accept whatever fortune is in the fortune cookie. How do you accept it? First, you eat a piece of it. Then you unscroll, read the fortune, and then, in obedience to the immanent will which stirs and urges everything, you eat the rest of the cookie. You do not pull out the fortune, discard it, and the cookie in petulance, because then you may not participate in a possible message from the great unknown. That is my answer.
I see. Thank you very much, Dr. Hal. Well, it seems, dear audience, as though we have that recitation in the pipeline for
I
you.
may see it myself.
Maybe.
Oh, OBS once again.
Did I break
catching
in
us
on
with
you,
our...
Hal? I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Did I break in
What?
on you when you were answering
It
that
was,
question?
it did, but I concluded answering the question.
It's quite all right.
I saw something weird happen over here, and then it was like, okay, well, I went to your close up, and then like it went weird. So,
Oh no.
Well, now,
OBS doing its usual
everything
shenanigans.
that
this
happens
is
was
what
supposed
we
to happen.
do. It's all
This
part
is
of
live
life's rich
theater.
pageantry.
That's right. It's like the days of live TV when anything could happen because nothing was recorded.
And everything will. We don't have a horse to come on stage and poop, which they would do occasionally for.
That happened at Starwood when Vermin Supreme brought a pony on stage during the symposium, and right in front of Stang couldn't contain itself. Vermin was planning to give everyone a pony if he won the election, but
Well, that's a platform we can all get behind, I think.
those ponies will not be arriving. Let us go on to our sober and serious recitation.
None of us
Indeed.
none of us are getting ponies, I'm afraid. All right, now I'm going to push a button here. I did find the problem before, but then that problem created another problem. So
They're likely to. A cascade of problems.
Let's see if
Just
we
push
can't.
that funky button.
So here, let me find that. Hold on.
Now the button is
I
migrated.
think actually it is here. So we're going to go to your close up first. Hold on.
W.H. Auden's poem, September 1st, 1939, was one that I learned the last time that Donald Trump was elected because it seemed appropriate. And although I think I performed it fairly recently, a few shows back, now is the time for me to do it again. I sit in one of the dives on 52nd Street, uncertain and afraid as the clever hopes expire of a low, dishonest decade. Waves of anger and fear circulate over the bright and darkened places of the earth, obsessing our private lives. The unmentionable odor of death offends the September night. Accurate scholarship can unearth the first offense from Luther until now that has driven a culture mad, find what occurred at Linz, what huge imago made a psychopathic god. I and the public know what all school children learn. Those to whom evil is done do evil in return. Exiled Thucydides knew all that a speech can say about democracy and what dictators do. The elderly rubbish they talk to an apathetic grave. Analyzed all in his book. The Enlightenment driven away, the habit-forming pain, mismanagement, and grief, we must suffer them all again. Into this neutral air where blind skyscrapers use their full height to proclaim the strength of collective man, each language pours its vain, competitive excuse. But who can live for long in an euphoric dream? Out of the mirror they stare, imperialism's face and the international wrong. Faces behind the bar cling to their average day. The lights must never go out. The music must always play. All the conventions conspire to make this fort assume the furniture of home, lest we should see where we are, lost in a haunted wood. Children afraid of the night, who have never been happy or good. The windiest militant trash important persons shout is not so crude as our wish. What Mad Nijinsky wrote about Diaghilev is true of the normal heart, for the error bred in the bone of each woman and each man craves what it cannot have, not universal love, but to be loved alone. From the conservative dark into the ethical life, the dense commuters come, repeating their morning vow. I will be true to the wife. I'll concentrate more on my work. And helpless governors wake to resume their compulsory game. Who can release them now? Who can reach the deaf? Who can speak for the dumb? All I have is a voice to undo the folded lie, the romantic lie in the brain of the sensual man in the street, and the lie of authority whose buildings grope the sky. There is no such thing as the state, and no one exists alone. Hunger allows no choice to the citizen or the police. We must love one another and die. Defenseless, under the night, our world in stupor lies, yet dotted everywhere, ironic points of light flash out, wherever the just exchange their messages. May I, composed like them of eros and of dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame.
There,
Beautiful.
geez, that was pulling teeth. So sorry
But
about that.
a moving recitation. Thank you very much, Dr.
It
Hal.
was. It was
Thank you.
beautiful, and sorry that was. When you see this show again, it'll all look right.
Well, there was an echo at the beginning, but I hope that the words were discernible.
Actually, I'm going to fix something real quick so we don't wind up with that problem again. So I'll be right back. But we're going to go to a monster. Actually, I'll fix it during the monster movie moment, which we're going to go to here in just a moment.
Perfection.
Yeah, that's why we call them monster movie moments, because they only are a moment.
So, but we have one coming up. But audience, now is the time to get your questions in. Why do you think we put these here aside from bathroom breaks? It is for the audience to put their questions in.
Or if they have to watch and enjoy what we have carefully assembled.
You can do that too, and then think of a question for the next segment, because we have plenty of time for your questions. So, folks, get those questions in. Here comes our first monster movie moment, and we'll see you when we're back.
Before we get to the meat of the film, Freaked, we would be absolutely remiss if we did not show you the brain-meltingly awesome opening title sequence scene here. This is a technique called strata cut animation, done here by David Daniels of Bent Image Lab. Daniels is one of the top animators using this technique, which is not only labor-intensive, but requires a level of brainpower I personally am not capable of. The images are created by sculpting and rolling clay into long, thick logs, with the image only appearing when sliced vertically. This is hard enough to achieve with still images, but these pictures also change over time, frame by frame, as the vertical slices are peeled away. Absolute madness, and understandable there are only a handful of people in the world that specialize in this style of animation. Freaked debuted in 1993 after a long and tumultuous production. The brainchild of Alex Winter and Tom Stern, the film was originally written as a low-budget horror vehicle for the band Butthole Surfers. After many rewrites and jettisoning the band, the film evolved into one of the most underrated black comedies of the 90s. It's understandable that this movie flies under the radar for a lot of folks, as it was intentionally suppressed by its own studio, 20th Century Fox, shortly after its film festival debut. In one of those tale-as-old-as Hollywood twists, Fox replaced studio head Joe Roth, who had greenlit the film, with Rupert Murdoch, who not only did not like the look of it or the fact that $12 million had been invested. Fox pulled its advertising budget and the film opened to a whopping 2 theaters in the US, grossing just under $7,000 its opening weekend. In spite of all this, the film has a respectable cult following, especially with fans of horror makeup effects and stop-motion animation. With goofy, Mad Magazine-inspired creature designs by famed artist Screaming Mad George, this film swings for the fences with its over-the-top look. The transformation sequence you first saw was animated by Stephen Chiodo of the Chiodo Brothers studio, with a sly homage not only to Gumby, but also to Ray Harryhausen's Cyclops from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. The sequence in which the slimy execs literally turn into slime and then transform into a monstrous clay shoe was done by none other than David Allen, who you may remember from our previous feature on the Primevals. Isn't that interesting?
I find it so.
Everything is
It makes
fixed.
the whole thing again.
So exciting.
So Pressure's got everything fixed. We've melted your brain. We've primed you for the next portion of the show, which is, of course, audience questions.
Everything is fluid and plastic here.
Indeed. But
So-
yeah, especially with the animation by David Daniels in that, I have been a fan of his for quite some time, and like I said, that's a level of brain power that I am not equipped with.
Well, the magic hand of chance comes into it also.
I put a message out in the audience. It's like sculpting in 4 dimensions.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
it's that flatland thing of, slicing things as they come through your dimension. And that's pretty mind-boggling.
It's wild stuff. There are a few other animators that practice that particular technique, and you can see them occasionally on Instagram, but David Daniels is considered one of the top animators using that technique. So
Long may he.
They do a similar thing with glass and candy and stuff like
Yes.
that. But
exactly. Somebody in the chat did point out this. They said it was like animated Millefiori beads. So that's if that helps with the analogy. Yes,
It's a pretty
absolutely.
good analogy.
but the fact that it changes as it's sliced is just, and it's done with such precision that the characters maintain their character, and it's mind-boggling.
Absolutely.
But you have a question for the doctor, Professor Gofflin.
I do indeed. Yes, we have another audience question for you, Dr. Hal.
All
Are
right.
you prepared?
I'll find out when I receive the question.
Very good. All right. Allow me to bring up my questions. Excuse me one moment, please. Here we are. I have here a $6 question from the Great Bloviator, friend of the show.
Yes, he is.
And he asks, Ook ook, monkey see, monkey do. Signed, a concerned primate.
Well, that is a truism because it has been reported that monkeys do have the faculty of imitating actions that they see. And I have seen this up close and personal since a friend of mine used to have a pet monkey, which was not on its best behavior. Anyway, not to get into that, monkeys are the evolutionary progenitors of apes, and we are a subsection of apes. We are an advanced primate. But the advanced primates, though they do possess reproductive and imitative nature, don't do it as strongly as the monkey does, the wellspring of our genesis. The New World monkeys have the prehensile tail. The Old World monkeys, like the apes that followed, have no tail, but still this strange personality trait crosses the gulf between the various species and unites us. Some have speculated that the strongest impulse in the human personality is the impulse to show something and imitate something. And of course, it is difficult to measure even today with our advanced equipment across the vast spectrum of the human population. If you wanted a vote from us here on the Ask Dr. Hal show as to whether monkey see, monkey do is valid, that vote is yes. But if the statement, the saying is offered critically as against those who imitate and synthesize what they see into art of their own, we do not offer that. We do approve of it. As the great cartoonist Wally Wood said, why draw when you can steal? And you see, that was the practice in comic strips of swiping, as it was called, taking a design problem that had already been solved by some other cartoonist and reconfiguring it into a necessary panel or drawing on the page. Art is synthesis. Therefore, we wish the monkeys not only to see, but do.
I have a question here. It is a $9 question. It is from our good friend, Reverend Onan Canabite.
Onan Canabite, the publisher of the Dobbstown Mirror newspaper?
Why, the very same, Dr. Hal.
Well, that's great. That indicates he is watching or at least aware of the show.
He knows we're here.
Yes.
Well, very, very good to hear from him. And for those of you who are out there, Reverend Onan runs a Patreon where for a very small fee or donation, love offering, you can get the Dobbstown Mirror mailed to your home.
I just received my copy.
It's an amazing publication, and I recommend it for everyone. But here is his question.
We're recommending it. We should also recommend The Vault of Slack, another subject newspaper.
Right.
Published by our own Andrew X.
We need to get these folks to give us commercials for this stuff, and we'll actually put them on the show.
So, well, we've just done 2 mini commercials for them, but yes, we want to emphasize and promulgate all efforts of subgeniuses on this program. Onan's question must be a shrewd one because that is his personality, and I'm interested in what it might.
I'm going to open it up because I haven't seen the complete question yet. Let me see. Reverend Onan Canabite asks, was there a character who changed form with a special word before Billy Batson and Shazam? The phrase "open sesame" opened the door of the 40 Thieves, but I know of no prior transformative special word. Do you? Blessings.
Well, ancient magicians, according to the lore of magic, which is always questionable, used a transformative word. In the sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage, an obscure occult book, these are laid out in patterns. And the stage magician still says abracadabra, which is one of those words which runs in special magic squares vertically and horizontally. But the word that was used for the metamorphosis and the change, the transformation, was Shemhamforash. And that is in these books, in these stories, but these are not fictional stories. So I don't know if this counts. Billy Batson, of course, a crippled newsboy, met the Nostotuti in the sewer, the secret controllers and sages behind everything. They conferred upon him the opportunity to become Captain Marvel by saying the word Shazam. Unfortunately for people who are trying to make sense out of comic books and their lore, Marvel, with its corporate juggernaut, created its own Captain Marvel, which is a woman and has nothing to do with the older Captain Marvel. And so this character is now known as Shazam. Thus, it has transformed Captain Marvel in reality and not just on the page where it still may fitfully exist, although the pages of actual comic books in this year of grace are vastly overshadowed by their corporate eidolons in the movies. But what an interesting question. Thank you, Onan.
Very good. I have our next question here, Dr. Hal. This is a very generous $30 question
Oh,
from
really?
our dear friend, Dr. Penny, friend of the show. And
Yes.
she writes, what is it within Bob that drives him to give haircuts to bums on Skid Row?
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Penny. This is an old piece of subgenius lore. It is found in the first book, the Book of the Subgenius, and it was illustrated by Satellite Weavers himself, who now is in charge of the subgenius contingent in the Doodah Parade, which we covered in a previous subgenius newsreel. Unaccountably, he was not given prominence in the recent Subgenius movie. Of course, you can say not everybody can make it into the movie because of the breadth of the subject matter. Nonetheless, we regret his absence from an otherwise excellent movie. And so, in my wandering explanation, I have, as I sometimes do, lost track of the answer I was about to give. If you could just remind me about the question one more time.
Yes, of course, Dr. Hal. The question is, what drives
Oh,
Bob to give haircuts to bums on Skid Row?
that's right. Yes, the picture shows Bob doing that. Well, Bob behaves in what appears to be an arbitrary manner, but actually, what motivates Bob is the search for slack. In Bob Dobbs, the most slackful person who ever lived, this is a preeminent order that he has to follow. And so if he sees a particularly untidy bum, whatever else he's doing, he might stop, if motivated, to give him a barbering job. This is not done for ambition or for bread or for the strut and trade of charms on the ivory stages, but only to achieve slack, perhaps by confounding expectations, which can be quite slackful, as some of us know, especially when the dominant paradigm is to let the poor bum stew in his own misery. This is not, however, the subgenius answer. Thanks very much for that question and its generosity. Here is a poem by William Blake. Never seek to tell thy love, love that never told can be, for the gentle wind does move silently, invisibly. I told my love, I told my love, I told her all my heart, trembling, cold, in ghastly fears. Ah, she doth depart. Soon as she was gone from me, a traveler came by, silently, invisibly. Oh, was no deny. Thanks again for your question.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal.
Well, Dr. Hal, the time has come for yet another opportunity for our audience to contemplate the content of our show while they seek their heart's desire and maybe consider what it's worth to them. You see, because the love offering is what fuels these answers to these questions. So, audience,
That's what in the old nightclub act, they would present it in an envelope, which also contained the question.
but friends, unfortunately, we don't have that option. So, Professor Gofflin and I are your envelopes.
Indeed, we are the vessel for your questions, dear audience. So please take this opportunity. This is your cue to get into the queue. So
Stuff
put
us,
those
audience.
questions in using the link in the Twitch chat now.
Treat us like an envelope, audience, and stuff us.
And we will envelop your question.
Anyway, we have something from the deep dark past before probably a lot of our audience was born. I don't want to point any fingers. But it's a really wonderful piece and surprising. So let's go ahead to that. Audience, get those questions in, and we will be back very shortly. I don't know if it's true. I didn't get a chance to verify it, but I came across that she was supposedly had a 163 IQ and
was fluent in several languages.
Yeah, spoke 5 languages fluently, the passage I read said.
Did everyone hear that clearly? It seemed to stop abruptly for me, and Zoom business meeting or something was put in my face, which I had to get rid of.
On my side, you blanked out for a moment.
Momentarily.
Yeah.
Yes.
The audience was not affected.
I hope it didn't interrupt the playing, which was very good, I thought.
No.
Anyway, we're happy to feature this on the show.
I forgot to sage. I forgot to do a sage smudge before the show today, so we're getting chewed by gremlins.
Sage smudge, eh? I'll remember that.
It works in my head.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I have a question.
Let's have that.
It is from someone who I have not seen before, so it's a first-time questioner, as near as I can tell. Mrs. Disappointed Scientist, and is a $3 question. And it is, how do I embody being neither here nor there in all the fullness of being?
The question is, how do I embody being neither here nor there in all the fullness of being? I suppose you do that by being somewhere else than being here and there as part of your time of existence, or your entity is compromised by a different entity. In old times, this was thought to be a form of demonic possession or witchcraft, but it is only part of the infinite spectrum of possible mental relations which the human being has with the large, oversized brain and its many complicated operations. The entirety of the brain is constantly working for you, not just the small part which represents your consciousness. And so if you rely on your instinctive views, you will embody that part which lies outside your point of consciousness. This is the voice which to some appears to be the voice of a divine being speaking to them, or even in others as travelers in remote parts of the world and the waste places of the earth have sometimes reported voices of a sinister nature, calling them to leave the trail and wander into the waterless desert. Sometimes these voices are heeded also. The voice asking you to cast yourself down from a great height, which Satan famously asked Jesus to do. After all, since you're Jesus, nothing will happen to you. Why don't you just jump off this steeple? But of course, Jesus' reply was correct, that one does not go out of one's way to make a mistake. Here I am parsing him. So I hope this answer was useful.
Well, Dr. Hal, we have another question for you. However, I must say this appears to be a question that is that you may not be equipped to answer.
Well,
It,
that's always a possibility.
it appears to be directed at me.
Mhm.
The question is from our regular viewer, MyPickTV. It is a $9 question, and MyPickTV wants to know, is there anything I can say or do that would convince Professor Gofflin to drop everything and start a new life with me in my cave?
Well, you are the authority here, so you must field this question.
I must.
I'm how do you want to, so we generally don't get this, so I'm sorry, didn't mean to dive in on
That's
that.
quite
Field
all
for
right.
$9, and you can tell them the true and rightful answer.
Shall I
Indeed,
give
I am
Gofflin the
prepared.
close up? Should I let Gofflin give her answer and then Hal can expound upon it? Or how would you like
I
that?
don't believe any expounding was requested on my part, but of course that is what I am able to do. So we'll leave that to Professor Gofflin too.
Well,
But on the other hand, it would be inappropriate for me to answer it straight away, since we do have Professor Gofflin here
it
to.
is the Ask Dr. Hal show, so I don't
We've
know that
had
there
that
is
in
a.
the past. Once again, if I can refer back to the nightclub act, sometimes a question was asked which was more suitable for Chicken John to answer than me, and so I let Chicken answer the question. This is something similar.
I'm going to hit Gofflin's close up.
Sounds good. Well, MyPickTV, my dear viewer, I must reject your advances, flattering though they are. However, I have found my true Yeti mate already in my partner, Aaron Alexovich, comic book artist extraordinaire, and we currently reside in a cave full of wonderful vinyl toys and books and everything my heart could desire. So I'm afraid, my dear, I must say no. However, this is my opportunity to plug Mr. Gofflin's book, Shock City. It is a horror comic for children, which we highly recommend. And many members of our audience can vouch that this is a quality publication made by Penguin Random House. And it can be had from Aaron's website or from shockcity.co. So please, if your love for me moves you such, we would appreciate if you would look at our wonderful publication. So thank you very much for your kindness.
And for that question, get the hardcover version.
The hardcover is preferred. It is a good high quality product. So
Will probably last longer than the paperback version. Well, I understand this enthusiasm for Professor Gofflin. The description of the interior of her cave was also another thing which characterized subgeniuses. They do tend to have these wonderful artifacts from our enduring popular culture. And that certainly describes my own predicament. Philo Drummond called these places of display slack altars, and I'm sure that many who are watching now also have a slack altar with these beloved items, the descendants of the Roman household gods, Lares and Penates, to watch over and watch over them.
Yes, we have several interesting artifacts, including some stuffed Yeti heads, are some of our favorites. We have many, many vinyl toys and far too many books. I think Pressure is showing us his Slack cave as well.
Yeah,
This is
but
indeed.
you have the close up, but Pressure, they're not seeing what you're showing.
Oh no. He's we're in the three view right now.
Oh, I see.
Presently, we can.
Not mine. I should pin it.
Ah, yes.
All right.
Well, I can hear
Yes.
how. Let me bring.
Well, now you're exclusively focusing on me. But believe me, slack altars abound where I am. What doesn't abound is a space that is not a slack altar. But so you can end up
that's
if
that
you
way.
follow your enthusiasm, as we always encourage people to do.
I have 30 years of weird stuff that's just everywhere.
40 here,
Yes.
more.
Oh, Hal, we need to get you archived, man. You've got the stuff, man.
The stuff.
The stuff.
Well, the title of a new movie, isn't it?
It's an old movie. It's
new-ish.
But there's a new movie which is similar about some goo. Maybe it's not called The Stuff like the old one with Michael Moriarty. But anyway, of course, that's some sort of liquid.
Well,
What's the picture look like?
Actually, I think we have another question this segment, don't we?
Sounds good.
I believe we could manage another question.
I think we can. Professor Gofflin, how about if I take that, and then we'll come back, the three of us, and we'll probably do our next monster movie moment, I do believe.
Sounds wonderful.
So
all right.
Let me go ahead and
momentarily.
I'm going to spin the wheels here. Let me see what we have. Had a couple of questions come in. Let's see here.
Questions in the queue. My thanks to you.
Here is an $11 question, Dr. Hal, from Reverend Drunculus. And I believe he's a return. I believe I've seen Reverend Drunculus here before. I think he's even asked some questions. So I guess we could refer to him as an old friend of the show.
That's right.
Doctor, I fear that many subgenii have fallen prey to the conspiracy's election propaganda. How can we refocus on Bob's principles of slack and profit in these trying times?
Well, the forces of the conspiracy are in the ascendant, and it must be remembered that their effect and possibly their primary motive, even one that may be unknown to them, is to rob us of our slack, to do what prevents us from achieving a slackful existence by forcing us to engage with their preoccupations, which we normally disdain, or be entirely consumed with the matter of survival in a basic state. So going backwards from that, first provide all necessary conventions for your survival. Secondly, do not lose track of your particular loves, even though it is wise to know what convulsions are occurring outside the zone of tranquility which you have created. It is not entirely a good thing to ignore them completely. That's part of the reason why the election went the way it did, because people were not paying attention, not willing to sacrifice that little bit of slack that they had by not following the news. However, unfortunately, a bad outcome creates a bad result, and the bad result now is that we will have to pay attention more closely to what is going on on in the outer world, the world outside our own comfort zone. And of course, by doing this, we expand that zone and ideally may expand it to cover all that we know and love in the fullness of time.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal.
That's my
Pressure?
1,000-yard stare.
Pressure, do we need to reboot you? Are you all right?
That's just my 1,000-yard stare. That's what it looks like. It's also the deer in the headlights look.
Yes. Well, you see the vehicle coming, you don't know which way to jump. Well, fatal indecision.
You know, back in my 30s, there were a couple of times, we'd do something strenuous, and I'd turn to Joyce and jokingly say, "Oh, I'm having a stroke," or "Oh, my chest." We don't joke like that anymore.
The boy who cried wolf. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't joke like that anymore. So, but we have coming up the Odd on the March for this month.
The Subgenius Newsreel.
It
Indeed.
is, in fact. And but before we do that, audience, we have to keep reminding you that the name of the show is Ask Dr. Hal. And the way that works is you come up with some paltry sum, $70, $80.
Yeah,
right?
You got to ask something. It doesn't have to be $70 or $80. That's very kind of you, Pressure. But we have found that if you don't sponsor a question with some kind of emolument, it indicates that your question is perhaps on the frivolous side and not one which you care about one way or the other. Once you attach the American dollar to your question, we know that you will take a little bit more time to formulate it. And so you said there was a question remaining that we could answer.
We should, since we've got this kind of one-arm bandit thing going.
Yeah, the
here.
slot machine.
The slot machine thing going. Maybe we should do like spinning wheels, and for these kinds of answers, and kind of give that magic 8-ball answer question.
Oh, I bet we could rig something like that up. Actually, I might be able to do that with some JavaScript.
Oh,
I'm
look,
sure you
got 3 strawberries.
But the problem with the magic 8-ball is its answers are always binary. Some form of yes or no, or an indeterminate state between them. So it's better to ask Dr. Hal, since I am here and able to answer insofar as it is within my power to do so.
But it's kind of like that fortune cookie question. If you don't like the fortune cookie, they always sound better when you end them with "in bed."
Oh, well, that's a different thing. Yes. Adding "in bed" to the end of the fortune in a fortune cookie. I didn't have that in my answer, but I've played that game.
They are oddly prescient.
I used to go sailing on the bay, and to go sailing on the bay, you have to go to the dock. And to go to the dock at the marina, you have to look at the names of all the other boats on the stern. And one thing one of our sailing companions came up with, she said that you simply put the word "anal" in front of all of these names. So if it's ocean breeze, it becomes anal ocean breeze, or darling Matilda, it becomes anal darling Matilda.
In bed.
Anyway, the game of adding things is always an enjoyable pastime.
This will make my next trip to Balboa Island very, very interesting indeed.
Yes, you can keep that in mind. Perhaps invent a variation on it.
Well, audience, get those questions in. We are eager to see what the good doctor has to say about them, and we have Odd on the March coming your way. So here it comes.
Odd on the March, a Subgenius newsreel production for November 2024.
Welcome once again, dear audience, to Odd on the March, your premier news outlet for all that is wild and wonderful on the web and otherwise. For your benefit, we have scoured the known universe to bring you the very finest in subgenius recommendations, from print media and movies to strange events and travel destinations. I am your host, Professor Gofflin, and once again this month I am joined by my good friends Dr. Billy and Reverend Xenofact. Wonderful to see you both, as always. It's been quite a month, hasn't it? How are we doing today?
Upright and taking nourishment.
Good, good.
Busy as always, doing the art, formatting and printing the next vault of Slack, and
Oh,
doing all the things
fabulous.
that I can't mention in mixed company, of course, for Bob.
Fair, yes. But here we are in the sight of Bob and ready to bring you another factual month of wonderful things. So let's go ahead and get started. Dr. Billy, what have you got for us this month?
Well, as you know, I'm a big fan of historic underground, alternative comics and everything. And last month, we looked at Dummy Magazine, which is upholding that tradition. And this month, another just amazing publication that I'd like to let people know about, and that's Mineshaft Magazine.
Beautiful. All right, let's hear all about it.
Mineshaft Magazine has been publishing new and pre-existing art, prose, and poetry by many of the giants of underground comics since 1999. There's eye-popping art by the likes of Robert Crumb, one of the great masters, Drew Friedman, an incredible technique, Mary Fleener and her cubism, for want of a better term, influenced wonderful comics, Kim Deitch, and our very own Dr. Hal Robins, as well as other luminaries, can be found in every issue. Newer work by Christopher Mueller, Aaron Horkey, and J.R. Helton, whose stories are heartbreakingly beautiful, are also regularly featured. Mineshaft moguls Everett Brand and Joya Palmieri are doing their part to combat mediocrity, and every issue is jam-packed with yummy goodness. If anyone is keeping the spirits of Raw Magazine, as well as the 1960s and 70s underground comics alive today, it is Mineshaft Magazine. For those of us who read Raw Magazine, who read the Robert Crumb, the Zap comics, all of the wonderful undergrounds, this is like finding those treasures anew. So I cannot recommend Mineshaft Magazine enough. Current and back issues are available at mineshaftmagazine.com.
Wow, sounds fabulous. That's another thing I'm going to have to get from my library. I love it.
It sounds right up my alley.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful, and just to see the quality of work every month, and as a fan of the underground, the classic underground comics in late 1960s, 1970s, to see work that I haven't seen by these artists, Robert Crumb, but also especially people like Mary Fleener, who's just a genius. It's just a joy.
Oh, that's wonderful. And yes, again, our very own Dr. Hal Robins featured in this lovely publication. So if that sounds like something that's up your alley, please check it out at the website address below.
We're virtually obligated to get issues if Hal is there.
I think so. I mean, please do your part.
I'd have to double check. He had a 2-page spread, which in one particular issue, and I'd have to look that up. But also, if you go to their website, it does list the artists in each issue, so you'll be able to find Hal, I'm sure.
Very good. Oh, that's handy. That's really nice that they do that.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Billy. That was excellent information. Reverend Xenofact, what have you got for us this month?
Well, as you know, zines are one of the things I enjoy as well, and mine is Hypno Video by Cobb Laboratories in Florida. This is a zine that could have been made any time in the last 30 years. It's just a guy reviewing movies and posting his reviews, and he has a very amiable, fun sense of it. It's like having a buddy just discuss movies he's seen with you. Now, the best part is he doesn't really shy away. He doesn't try to do pretentious analysis. He doesn't shy away from his opinions. It's just, hey, here's what I think. And every issue is themed. At one point, he decided to do an issue about films set in Shanghai, and then he realized, nope, most films with Shanghai in the title are just putting it in there as a sales pitch. So he did a whole theme of there's Shanghai in the title. He's done things on mafia movies, movies with evil children, alien invaders, dumb sex comedies, strange war films. Every issue is about 8 to 16 reviews, and he tells you what he thinks, what he saw, whether you should see it or not, and then he does a roundup of what he found. And this has a whole handcrafted feel. This is just a guy putting together something he likes. It's free or trade, but my advice is that unless you got something worth trading, send him $5 every now and then and say, send me what you got. Now, the other thing is, Cobb, who runs this, is very personable. So if he likes what you've sent him, he'll send you a letter, he'll correspond with you, you'll get pictures of whatever strange holiday display he's come up with. Halloween is his favorite. And maybe some interesting ads, flyers, or whatever comes his way. It's the archetypical personal review zine that we've had since the 80s, and it's a delight. Everyone should be basically sending this man money in trades to get Hypno Video. An utter pleasure and worth everything you spend or don't spend on it.
Wow, that sounds fabulous. That's like a return to real classic zine culture. Just the idea of doing something in trade, doing something that is
Mhm.
readily available and curated. That's that you
Yeah.
just don't find that very often anymore.
I
And
know that a number of our viewers may be aware of the great period of Fact Sheet 5 uh,
yes.
that Mike Gunderloy published. And it was the zine of zines, and that's how we knew what was out there at that time.
Well, now it's fallen to us. And again, Cobb's newsletter, Hypno Video, is absolutely worth it. And you'll probably find several things to watch. I think of myself as informed, and he's dug up amazing things like, modern Soviet sci-fi horror to strangely intriguing shipboard comedies
Huh.
and things that I would think I would know about that I didn't. So it's just a delight. Everyone should get it. And, at some point, we should probably try to get him on the show. I'm
I would
sure he
love
has
that.
plenty of things. The only danger would be if he and Hal got talking, we'd have no show left.
Right, we might run short on actual question answering time, so.
Yes, he's quite, but yes, definitely recommend.
Oh, fabulous. That's wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that. Well, it is once again my turn, and this time I am delving into a fun little travel destination that you all might find intriguing. So, let's say you might be considering turning in your U.S. citizenship and starting over fresh in a new country for reasons. Well, dear friends, your new home awaits you a mere 106 miles east of San Diego in beautiful Imperial County, California. There, just off Highway 78, you will find the self proclaimed newest country in the world, the glorious United Territories of the sovereign nation of the People's Republic of Slowjamistan. Landlocked though it is by the United States of America, I assure you this is in fact a real micronation that I myself have visited. Situated on 11 acres of unspoilt, undeveloped desert near the Salton Sea, Slowjamistan takes its place on the world stage with other micronations like Monaco, Liechtenstein, and Vatican City. The founder of the Republic, Slow Jam radio DJ Randy R. Williams, purchased the land in October of 2021 and soon after declared it a nation state with himself installed as lifelong supreme leader, the Sultan. Now, understandably, you may be thinking this is some kind of sovereign citizen movement fun poison, but I assure you this is all in very subgenius styled good humor. The Sultan sells citizenships for a mere $0. You heard that correctly. You too can become a citizen of Slowjamistan for free. You must, however, adhere to some very strict rules. The wearing of Crocs is strictly prohibited. You must agree to always eat string cheese the correct way by peeling it, of course, never biting into the stick. And it is forbidden to reply all to an email unless absolutely necessary. Can you visit Slowjamistan? Absolutely, with some minor caveats. Visits and selfie stops on the perimeter of the country are permitted at all times, but you must gain permission, aka what they're calling a visa, to actually set foot on the land. However, this can be bypassed several times a year during public events held in the country. So be sure to check the website, slowjamistan.org, for travel advisories. It should be noted that Slowjamistan is completely undeveloped, so don't expect visiting to find bathroom facilities or even necessities like water. They do have a cool submarine, though, and the Sultan assures his people that the lazy river attraction will begin construction any day now, just as soon as they get over a small financial collapse. So, if you want to support Slowjamistan and their lofty ideals, again, basic citizenship is free, but you can find perks including a very convincing Slowjamistani passport for a mere few dollars more. That website again is slowjamistan.org, and their address can be easily found by searching Republic of Slowjamistan on Google Maps.
Oh,
Wow,
sounds
I
like
think
we
dual,
all have to join.
Sounds like a road trip, right, guys?
yeah, I think dual citizenship is in my future.
I think it
Yeah,
might be for all of us, yes.
yeah,
Yeah, the Sultan seems like somebody that understands a good joke, and you know what they say about jokes here in the Church of the Subgenius. So,
yeah.
yeah.
$5 a joke. Oh wait, that's what I say.
Oh,
Long story.
that's your church. Yeah.
They do come with comprehensive analysis.
No, true. Well, very good. That is another month of Odd on the March. Dear audience, thank you very much for joining us. Once again, you can find links to our show notes and more at oddonthemarch.com. Now, let me see if I can get this correct this time. It's ad insolitus.
Ad insolitus.
What he said.
Now, dear audience, we must issue a small apology. The Odd on the March website has yet to be updated. It will be updated by tomorrow. So if that was something you found intriguing, please file that website address away for later. We will have that updated shortly. Well, Dr. Hal, we return now to the question answering portion of the program. Are you ready?
I assume I am.
All right, here we are. I have a question from friend of the show, Agrajag. It is a $20 question.
Very good.
And Agrajag asks, is it just me, or has the luck plane shifted about 90 degrees the wrong way lately? Vibes are off. What equipment does one need to climb what I'm now going to call the luck wall?
Well, perhaps Slack can buoy you up. That is the answer we always give in the Church of the Subgenius. But you can't just receive Slack by saying, I have Slack. You must seek after it and find it. And engagement, as I pointed out, is something which will protect you from being blindsided from what the pinks and the conspiracy in their madness have done. But how does one get over a wall? One may climb over it with a maximum of effort, perhaps, or one may tunnel under it. And finally, one may walk around it if it is not infinite in length. All of these are obvious, but since we speak of a metaphorical wall, we may find metaphorical expression for these methods of getting past this barrier. As General George Patton once said, "Fixed fortifications are monuments to the stupidity of man. If he can get over oceans and cross continents, he can certainly get over some dam, wall, or fort." And this is a challenge to your ingenuity. And the first thing is simply not to be beleaguered by negation and despair without feeling that you can show an affirming flame when it is required. Here is another poem by William Blake. Ah, sunflower, weary of time, who countest the steps of the sun, seeking after that sweet golden clime where the traveler's journey is done, where the youth pined away with desire, and the pale virgin, shrouded in snow, arise from their graves and aspire where my sunflower wishes to go.
Beautiful, Hal. I have a $5 question from Reverend, oh, I'm sorry, it's a $6 question from Reverend Dr. Les.
Mm-hmm.
And it is there slack in international snacks? Is there
Snacks.
slack in international snacks?
There may be a great deal of slack in a snack which travels from one nation to another and is not the product of the second nation. For example, for a long time it was not possible to get peanut butter in the old world, and some nations disparaged it as donkey food. But of course, we Americans eat a lot of peanut butter, almond butter, and all sorts of things like that. Sometimes it is a good gift, or has been, to bring to your friends who are in an expatriate type situation some snack which reminds them of the old country. Of course, here we in the contiguous United States specialize in all the multitudes of snacks found in roadside gas station marts. These are mostly of the salty bag snack category, but there may also be many different variations of sugar, since the sugar tit is also of extraordinary popularity here in pampered America. These things are not health food, but they are comfort food, and to be comforted is in itself a healthy thing, which is something that food ideology and its fanatical adherents often fail to recognize. How much did you say was that question sponsored by?
Oh, just a moment,
It
please.
was $6, Hal.
$6. That's good. That's good old American dollars. Just asking.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal. Our next question is a follow-up question. Actually, it just appears to be a standalone, but it is a second question from our friend, the Great Bloviator. And let me load that one more time. Oh my goodness, it is a very generous $30 question.
Really? How nice.
Indeed. Let's see. The Great Bloviator writes, "Good evening, Dr. Hal. What are your thoughts regarding the dead internet theory? Would it be possible to reanimate the dead internet as a shambling zombie internet? Signed, the Cybernetic Necromancer."
Well, the internet can be dead if it can not both send and receive. And if it can do neither, it may be said to be truly dead. And what shall we do in that instance? Build heliograph towers to signal and flash our ironic points of light back and forth. No, it will require reconstruction in the same way. Now, if you imagine that our current adversaries, the Russians, have some satellites constantly traveling around the Earth, which may contain nuclear weapons and fissile material. All that is necessary is for those satellites to drop down a certain degree and create an airburst, which will completely fuse and destroy all computers and internet in the United States as a preliminary, perhaps, to another aggressive move. This should never have been allowed to happen, but we are in a state of chaos in our national politics, which our Russian colleagues have been participating in creating. We must be prepared to recreate long-distance communications one way or the other. Before the internet ever existed, subgeniuses found a method, and this was in the transmission of yak tapes, as we called them. In those days, we all had a little hand-carried recording device with a cassette in it, and we would, while doing errands, driving around, or perhaps just sitting at home, recite our thoughts and inspirations to our fellow subgeniuses. Then we would put them in the mail and send them, and often receive another tape back. And in the library of published subgenius books, the book High Weirdness by Mail was advice on how to reach many non-standard and slackful institutions, which there is no clear guide to find in the conspiracy's own instrumentalities. This is a hope. But then on the other hand, the conspiracy is attacking the post office and the mail too, since it serves the people. They wish to end it and privatize it. And the current postmaster general has already crippled the mail and slowed down delivery. Let us assume some kind of mail will still exist. But the chief problem with that, and with other aspects of the solution, which I have mentioned, is that we are still relying on other people to restore what has been taken from us. It is our duty to enter the struggle and to do our part to make sure that our own effort is being injected into this tragically turbulent mess of a situation. Let's assume, since one of the largest exponents of internet communication is now constantly at the side of the future dictator of America, that he, Mr. Musk, would not allow the basis of his empire to be dissolved. So even from the Plutonian side of the ledger, there may be assistance in a time of confusion, doubt, and dread. This is a well-known poem by Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds would have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late, they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, My father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
Beautiful, Hal. We had a question from the audience that I'll pass along to you. It's from Kawa Bunghole. And
Very good.
he asked, what kind of spider is that behind you?
It is a male spider, and many spider effigies are of female spiders. Female spiders are larger than the male in every case. How does one tell the male from the female? Well, let's see if I can just get it down. If you are intimately close to a large male spider, you will notice that at the end of the pedipalps are two spermatophores. In mating, the male inserts these lumps on the end of the pedipalp into the female's gynecological pouch. So the male has these things, females do not. They just have claws there. And if anyone saw the movie Spaceman, which I very much champion and favor, it is to be noted that the giant space spider, which features so prominently in that movie, appears to be a female, although since it's an alien, one cannot necessarily tell. But all other considerations aside, I recommend that movie. How much did we get for that one?
I believe that was just a random question from a chat participant.
Oh,
So
I see.
there
This is
has
what in the old show we would use the 8-ball for, but it would be
indeed.
difficult, you see, to provide such a detailed answer with what is essentially a decorated version of yes or no or maybe. There's no doubt that the males are different from the females. They're smaller and they have those bumps, the reproductive bumps on the end of the pedipalps or chelicerae.
Actually, they gifted us with a tier 1 sub.
Indeed, yes, a very generous tier 1 gifted sub, which I think roughly equivalent to about $5.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
So,
Yes.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yes, that's very cool.
yes, thank you very much.
I
Thank you
have
for
to
your
keep an
generosity
eye on
and
that
welcome.
too. You see, those, we
It's
like
the
those
juggling
subs.
act.
They're nice. They're nice.
We do. Thank you very much.
We're in a juggling vein.
Well, I have a question, so I'm gonna jump back to me, Professor Gofflin. We'll see you in a couple minutes. But I have another question for you, and this one is from our very good friend and a person that does some work with the show, Reverend Xenofact. It
Great.
is a $15 question, and
how
it
splendid.
is one I'm going to open up. Dear Dr. Hal, if you had a drag show, would your stage name be Dr. Gal? Or would it be something else? Also, what kind of style would you dress as in your drag persona? Please do not assume I am working on an entirely new merchandising opportunity.
Well, drag shows are not my purview, but it is necessary sometimes for an actor, and I have been one at different times, to dress and perform in an identity alien to yours. And I did that, as a matter of fact, a number of years ago at a cafe in Santa Rosa, California, which was run by my friend and assistant K-Rob at the time, called Cafe This. In this cafe, I essayed the role of Aunt Bertha, based upon the religious fanatic Bertha Trover Shooks and recited a poem of my own composition in the voice of Aunt Bertha. I am told I made a convincing Aunt Bertha. At the end of the poem, a giant spider was dropped on me, a surprise to me as well as the audience. So I have done it, but as for the name of the drag character, there are women named Hallie. I have known a few. That doesn't seem very original, but on the other hand, it is logical. One seeks a name that is cognate to your non-drag name. But if one wished to range far away and become a classic made-up bouffant drag queen, the way they usually appear, I think a good source of names would be the names of artificial sweeteners. For example, NutraSweet or Splenda, things like that would make good drag queen names. These I offer to the drag community free of charge. Here is a poem I may not have ever spoken before on this show. It is by Blake again, and it is addressed to the being that subgeniuses call Jehovah One, the senile space god who is identified with the Ancient of Days in the Bible, who hung the constellations and so forth. Blake called this God, with whom he was impatient, Nobodaddy. And so here is his apostrophe to Nobodaddy. Why art thou silent and invisible, father of jealousy? Why dost thou hide thyself in clouds from every searching eye? Why darkness and obscurity in all thy words and laws, that none dare eat the fruit but from the wily serpent's jaws? Or is it because secrecy gains females and applause?
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal.
Well, we have another monster movie moment coming up.
Excellent.
Oh, we weirdly get these sorts of themes going, so I'm not going to give anything away, but Professor Gofflin is a big animation fan. I'm a big theatrical makeup fan. And so the next movie falls into those two categories in a rare
Well, we had great
sort of way.
makeup in the last movie excerpt also by Screaming George.
Indeed, yes, absolutely.
My hero.
Fabulous
This
makeup.
will be a night of superb monster makeups, I feel.
Well,
Indeed.
So, and the next movie, it's kind of one of those forgotten gems, so I hope everyone appreciates it, so much so that you're inspired to ask the doctor a question, something in your heart of hearts, something that you truly need to know. And it is but a pittance for you to submit a love offering with this question. Just yes, as Professor Gofflin illustrates, just a sniff of cash. So, with that, here comes our next monster movie moment.
'90s Nightbreed, based on the Clive Barker short story Cabal, follows the main character Aaron Boone, a troubled psychiatric patient who seeks out an underground enclave of monsters, freaks, and devils known as Midian. The twist here is that the monsters are actually the good guys fighting for survival, while the normals attack and destroy their stronghold. If this doesn't resonate with your average subgenius or the experience of anyone who's ever considered themselves to be on the outside of society, then I don't know what would. In fact, this film, besides being a fun piece of genre horror, is also considered to be a piece of queer cinema, with the titular Nightbreed monsters being a stand-in for the LGBTQ community. The concept is undercut slightly by Boone having a girlfriend, Lori, in the movie, but we'll forgive Barker a few incongruencies made for the sake of storytelling. Nightbreed features an on-camera role by body horror genre director David Cronenberg as the evil Dr. Philip K. Decker. Decker attempts to convince Boone that he is a dangerously hallucinating serial killer when, in fact, Decker's sinister goal is to uncover and destroy the monster stronghold of Midian, using Boone as his pawn. The film features special makeup effects by Tony Gardner, who also worked on our previous Monster Movie Moment feature, Freaked. Famed Star Wars concept artist Ralph McQuarrie was brought in as a matte painter to create some of the Necropolis environments, as well as an enormous 60-foot mural at the Pinewood Studios that depicts the history of the Nightbreed during the opening credits. Other special effects include some fun stop-motion cuts of monsters by Rory Fellows of Image Animation. Some of these scenes sadly ended up on the cutting room floor and were thought lost for decades, but were recently uncovered in an attempt to create a restored director's cut release of the film. In fact, the fan movement, known as Occupy Midian on social media, was successful in securing not one, but two more complete releases of the film, both of which you can own on Blu-ray.
And so
Well,
once again, oh.
Sorry, I apologize. Please continue.
I was just going to say another obscure film to some, which we hope to make less obscure. I didn't mean to step on your line, though.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, no, I definitely recommend this film. It's an interesting one thematically and also with the makeup effects as we discussed. So.
The director's cut, is this available if one wishes to order it?
Yes, it is. It is available from a couple of publishers, actually. There are two versions that are sort of competing director's cuts, so you may want to secure copies of both if you are the completist.
That is likely.
Well, very good. Dr. Hal, are you ready for another question?
I must be, perforce.
Indeed. Well, let us continue then. The next question we have is from friend of the show and Odd on the March contributor, Reverend Dr. Billy.
Oh, great.
This is a $15 question.
How splendid.
Indeed, Dr. Hal, his question is, are there questions that cannot or perhaps should not be answered?
Well, yes, there are. And if they are asked, we are obligated to provide an answer. So we will provide, in such cases, an alternate answer. There are many phases and shades of knowledge about which it has been said, particularly by Dana Andrews in Curse of the Demon, Night of the Demon. Sometimes it's better not to know, because when you know the unthinkable may know you. Or as Goethe said, gaze not into the abyss, because the abyss will gaze into thee. That being said, it is still possible, as I indicated before, to generate an answer which answers the letter, if not the spirit of the law. If I were having a casual conversation with you on this topic, I would attempt to find out at least the realm that your fearful question comes from. Perhaps the answer is one that would remove the fear and uncertainty, and not the safety which otherwise one enjoys. In performing occult operations, one must not appear to grant the demons belief in them that gives them further power over us. We must keep it secret and put on a brave front with our chanting, magic circles, and rigmarole. Thank you for an interesting question, which I hope I've done something to answer. And now, several questions answered by William Blake, who seems to be coming to mind to me tonight. That is the title of this, I think, is Several Questions Answered. What is it men in women do require? the lineaments of gratified desire. What is it women do in men require? The lineaments of gratified desire. The look of love alarms because 'tis filled with fire, but the look of soft deceit shall win the lovers higher. Soft deceit and idleness, these are beauty's sweetest dress. He who binds himself to a joy doth the winged life destroy, but he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise.
Beautiful, Hal. I have a
Did
$5.
the striking clock knock out the last word in the poem, or was it heard?
I didn't hear it until just now when you mentioned it, and I heard a quick bong. No,
Oh, it will bong as we change into 8 o'clock from 7 o'clock.
it's Hal. This is what live theater is like. Sometimes an ambulance drives by, and well, it's gonna.
Yes, I hope it doesn't come here.
Well, yeah, of course. It's not, ask not for whom the siren tolls, I suppose.
Yes.
We
Well,
had
I
that
am
conversation
given to
earlier.
understand that you have yet a further
I
question.
have another question for you. It is from Dr. Reverend Big John, a friend of the show, and
Yes.
it is a $5 question. And the question is, what
Right.
is the answer to the next question?
Ah, all right. The answer to the next question is one that one always must keep in mind. And in fact, when I am doing this, I tend to think ahead and not to think of any answer I have just given. And thus it is difficult to reply and qualify it because it has departed from my mind. It is necessary to think ahead. But the next answer must be, when parsed, that your question has helped us by being asked, and that we will help you by giving it an answer.
I'm going to open on 3 because we have, I think, one question left in the queue. And
All right.
Professor Gofflin, would you be so kind? I believe it is the question from PW.
Yes, I would be most happy to do that. That does look as though it is our last question.
Just that.
The
Do you concur?
last question.
Yes.
But questions can still come in. That's the way it works.
Yes, they can.
The show is only as long as the number of questions we have. And we do invite you, when it is all over, to visit us in the after show chat room where we may speak back and forth.
Indeed. For those that are joining us for the first time, we do have a live interactive chat with the cast after the show. So please be on the lookout for that link in the Twitch chat as we close down.
I have to post that. And audience, I would ask a little bit of patience because we have to switch from this platform into that platform. Takes a couple of minutes. So if you're having trouble getting in, don't give up. Just come back, give it a couple of minutes and give us a few minutes to kind of settle the dust.
Or you can go to our site, and our site will guide you to the chat room independently.
It actually does, for security reasons, how we had to stop doing that because of some issues that popped up elsewhere. We decided that it wasn't a good idea to publish it, that we would give it to the audience when they came to visit us. So.
Securidad, Dad.
Yes, yes, all part of life's rich pageantry.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what, Professor Gofflin, if you'll go ahead and ask PW's question, and then we'll come back again. We'll spin those wheels. We'll see if anything else is there, and we'll go ahead and take things wherever they will go.
Sounds wonderful. All right, let us forge ahead with our final question, ? This question is a $10 question from PW. PW asks, are psychedelics time machines?
Most interesting, and we appreciate your asking this question because it enables us to provide an answer. And I think most people who are watchers and followers of this show know the psychedelic experience by direct experience in some way. And then, if so, some of you may have experienced the strange uh, prophetic and recollective dimension in a very intense LSD trip, which is called by some ancestral memory, where you seem to remember things from earlier incarnations of yourself or see clearly something which is about to happen. Both of these things I have experienced, so I know it can happen, and so have others said that they experienced it. In that movie about zombies, whose name I forget, not the George Romero zombies, but the actual kind, there is a flash forward that the protagonist experiences, which proves to be prophetic. And in dreams, you may be provided with something that your unconscious mind knows and is related to your conscious mind by the unconscious mind in its ever evolving struggle and mission to protect you and give you valuable information. It's not surprising, thus, given those circumstances, that flashes of prophecy and deep recollection may occur if the point of consciousness will cease its introspective chatter enough to allow them to be handed in by the archons of memory and thought, inboard and always present.
Very good answer. Thank you, Dr. Hal.
Awesome. Well, we didn't get a question in our regular queue, but we had sort of a follow-up question from Kawa Bunghole.
Oh.
And
well, we did it in the live one too. Forgive me for getting back to the live action show, which probably will never occur again in California. But we felt that if the audience wanted to qualify a question, there was something called a side note where they would send up and we would read it into the record. This side note required no extra payment, although an extra payment is always welcome. What is the substance of this edition?
Oh, sorry, I was winking at the audience.
Yes, I saw.
So I liked the question too. So and there's some irony to it, which is interesting. Synchronicity. How do I tell if my question might be a difficult one to answer? Mayhap I cannot find an answer no matter how deep I dig. How shall I find it? Are you able to dig into the depths and dig it up? How far can I stick a hot dog up my ass? How to you?
To go to the latter one, once again, back to the live show. Actually, I don't know whether this is kosher to mention, speaking of hot dogs. So, Chick and John did many different shows before we settled on the Ask Dr. Hal show, and some of these were definitely unpleasant and didn't work very well. Some were quite popular, others were not. And one of the ones he did was called What's Up My Butt? And it had a proctological dimension. But as far as the hot dog is concerned, it is of a known given shape and even, a likely shape to be intermitted in this fashion. And you can get it in there as far as its own length, and better not to get it in farther because of the shape and function of the human rectum. The word rectum is the neuter form of the Latin word rectus, which means upright. Hence, the motto of certain schools are, or used to be before they were laughed out of existence, rectus or rectum in propter sese, that is to say, upright on account of one's self. One behaves well not because of being forced to or constrained to, but because one is naturally behaving. Of course, in the Ask Dr. Hal show, as in other things, you do meet people who give deliberately provocative, paradoxical questions. Very often, could God create a ditch so wide he couldn't jump over it? Or could Jesus create a burrito that was too large for him to eat? The latter one seems very easy to answer. But, of course, in the case of dealing with theological entities who are divinities, one must always assume that since they have their own set of rules, they would follow them. I hope that my question will give you an answer which falls within your own set of rules.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hal.
We had a
It
question.
looks like we have one last question snuck in under the wire here.
See, that often happened back to the old
does.
show. We would say we've done the last question, but Chicken would pull out another one, which he'd been saving.
Indeed.
So
Well,
it
here-
all seems to come back again and again.
What pressure?
Oh.
Oh.
Another
oh,
one
I
just
see.
rolled in.
Yes,
Another
one rides
and
the
another.
bus.
Quite
and
a
another,
one, quite a
and
one
another.
to
Yeah.
roll in too.
All right,
A very
well,
nice
let's
question
answer
that
them.
rolled in.
Very good. Oh, yes, I just shook the jar, and it seems we have two last-minute questions. Oh,
Very
my
good.
goodness. Such generosity from our
Mhm.
viewership. Well, the first of the last questions we have here is from Dr. Reverend Big John. This is an $8 question.
Mhm.
And Big John asks, if you are a cop, do you have to tell me?
I suppose that is a question in the legal area, in the rights of suspected or apprehended people. Whether or not the law says you have to be informed, and I'm fairly sure it does not say so, police work demands that you have a clandestine plainclothes officer out there, a detective, as it is formally known. These could hardly do their work of detection if they announced their status as law enforcement officers. I think this clearly answers the question. But in a larger sense, if you are a cop, your mantle of authority too often allows you to bend or even break the strictures which the law allows. And so one should only tell a policeman what is necessary and not volunteer information.
Interesting. All right. Thank you for that answer.
As Chicken John once said, if you've got trouble and you call the cops, now you've got trouble and cops.
There is truth to that.
Yes, the spirit of Chicken John seems to be haunting this particular show. And
Yes.
one other question came rolling in.
Indeed.
I would smudge, but I kind of like chicken around. So he's he's chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Chicken is what chicken does.
Well, he's not allowed to do it around here anymore. But up in Isleton, where I sometimes am able to visit him, where he's the mayor of a small conclave of bewildered people, I've gone up and done shows there. But once you get canceled, you can't do shows in the urban environment.
Got to go out of state, man.
Yes, well, he was worried that his being canceled would rub off on me if we attempted to do a show locally.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
People were so self-righteous about his supposed offense that they even sent death threats to his children. We're just going to have to, I do my show in other states at X Day and Pube Fest and Starwood and other things like that. What's this fabulous final question?
Well,
indeed.
So I'm going to spin the wheels one more time, see if I have any more
Yes.
surprises.
All right.
Let me just
As
do
you're
that.
doing that, I must call out a very generous gift was just dropped in our Twitch chat by Bulldozier, gifting several tier 1 subs to the
Yeah.
community. Very
Awesome.
generous.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very
Another
much.
one. Bing, 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 bing.
So much love this evening. Thank you, dear audience.
Ricochet Rabbit.
Mhm.
Oh, we should
Goodness.
dig up those cartoons.
Oh.
We have a lot
Are
of
you aware
time
of them,
to
Ricochet Rabbit?
fish for cartoon
We
characters,
should dig those up. Anyway,
especially since some are being sealed off from us by busy teams of corporate copyright lawyers.
Indeed.
We are sometimes, when you download our shows, not able to show the special features. You'll just find blanks there. However, you can find them by going to archive.org. Isn't that true?
well, yes, it is. Right now, though, they're still experiencing some issues, so getting uploads to them has been difficult. They got hacked recently and rather severely. If you have a membership on archive.org, you should consider changing your password because the hackers got everything.
But archive.org is struggling to come back and may succeed.
They're
Yes.
very, very close. We are monitoring them. I've been busy doing a couple of other things recently, so I haven't checked them over the last few days. But the last time I looked, they were still not taking uploads. But so out on YouTube, because YouTube is very, very fussy, and the stuff that we do is what we consider fair use. It's not what we consider; it's what the law considers fair use. And we try
But
to
the
follow
robot
that
doesn't know
description.
that.
The robot doesn't know it. And so
No,
we get all kinds
hasn't
of
been programmed
copyright
to learn
hits,
it.
and it's a
Mhm.
pain in the. So we remove
It's a
that.
constant pain in the keister to try to pull these things together, but we do it here on the Ask Dr. Hal Show, the home edition.
That's right.
But what is the name of the show? The name of the show is Ask Dr. Hal. So, right? So that's what we do.
One could look at it as there's a certain benefit to watching it live rather than having to fish it out later by the free download service which we provide. And I assume you're watching it now if you're one of those people. You're ready to answer yet another question.
Well, and so, but I mean, we use the community theater model for doing this show. So the accidents are kind of cool and funny and all that, but when you see the show that we put on the YouTube or on archive.org, it's been sanitized a little bit. We'll clean up.
Sure, we clean it up.
We
try to
clean
offer.
clean the rough edges, the burrs off of
We
it.
want to offer a streamlined product, and so we do that too.
So if you
Indeed.
want to see the pandemonium of what can happen in a live show,
How the sausage is made.
Indeed,
yes.
please drop us a follow over here on Twitch if you feel so inclined.
Sure. Anyway, I have here a $33 question, Dr. Hal.
Good Lord.
And it is, Dr. Hal, do you happen to know? Oh, it's from Reverend Jack D. Fontenot. A new name. I don't recall that one, but a new friend of the show, Dr. Hal.
Yes.
Dr. Hal, do you happen to know any poems about cyberpunk or cypherpunk? And again, that's a $33 question.
Well, this is a sad admission to make, but I'm thinking right now, accessing my own memory banks, and I'm not finding any in there about either of those things. This is a defect which I must remedy. What would count as cyberpunk or even cypherpunk? The thing is, the essential elements of those things are the mechanical and digital world, which has been external to my study of the noosphere and its poetic contents. But I would be extremely surprised if there were not such verses. And so it is my defect that I cannot provide them. I am concerned with poetic expression, always have been and have dabbled in it myself. But fortunately for me, as an escape valve, your question was one which could be resolved with a binary answer. Either I do or I don't. So my answer must be that at the present time, I don't. However, I thank you for your extremely generous composition. Ars Poetica by Archibald MacLeish. A poem should be palpable and mute, like an old fruit, dumb as old medallions to the thumb, as silent as the sleeve-worn stone of casement windows where the moss has grown. A poem should be wordless as a flight of birds. A poem should be motionless in time as the moon climbs, leaving as the moon releases twig by twig the night-entangled trees. A poem should be motionless in time as the moon climbs. A poem should be equal to, not true. For all the history of grief, an empty doorway or a maple leaf, for love, the leaning grasses, or two lights above the sea, a poem should not mean, but be. In future, I'll see if I can find any cyberpunk verses. And thank you.
Goff and I were saying that John Shirley probably might be
Possibly.
He has written poems lately, and perhaps he's even watching, though I suspect it has escaped his mind. But I'll remind him that his name came up, and I'll have him send me some, and then we'll just see. So don't give up on this particular angle of your quest for slack.
we should kick his chair sometime, because we did have him on the show very early on when we started doing
Yes,
this.
he's been a guest and a very
Yeah.
satisfactory one.
Yeah, him and Hal had a really nice Q&A together and a nice chat. Two
So as I
genius senior church members just shooting
two
the
As I
breeze.
said,
luminaries.
I don't really concentrate on what has happened. I'm always looking ahead for what may happen. But I know this. I have enough memory to know that did occur, and we have the old poster which has his face on it.
Professor Gofflin and I have to keep an eye open for potential reruns. So,
Yeah, that could be
Always.
we have to keep one foot in the past.
better than keeping one foot in the grave.
Oh,
Like
indeed.
us.
Sometimes there's that goose, that you.
Yes.
But let me spin those wheels, because I'm superstitious. I do have a question from the audience that I will
Very good.
leave to your discretion. It is another follow-up question from Kawa Bunghole, and it is: can you ad-lib a cyberpunk poem about sticking a hot dog up my ass? Now, Dr. Hal, before you answer that question, I do want to give you the synchronicity to all of this. We were coming back today from a trip up north, and we were driving past a little restaurant that Joyce and I like, a little hole-in-the-wall place called the Dog House up in Wilmington, Delaware. And they have the best damn hot dogs on the planet. And they're these foot-long hot dogs. And I got two with sauerkraut and onions and mustard. And
Which you consumed in the normal way, not the reverse way.
in 4 bites. I mean, it was, it's
well,
just
they must have
massive. I
been good.
can't see. I have to go long ways in this screen.
Yes. Well, if we're
So,
discussing hot dogs, the ones in the grocery store are not as good as the ones that I buy locally in San Francisco's Mission Bodega
mm.
company. It may be local, called Food, F-U-D,
Oh yeah, I know.
produces
Yeah,
wonderful
FUD,
FUD or food.
FUD.
If the U is long, they provide wonderful hot links. Have you had those? Have you tried
I
those?
have not. I've seen the brand, but I've never tried them
I
personally.
recommend them as everything that you're trying to get in a hot dog that you buy in the grocery store, they actually provide.
Huh.
I had one
Interesting.
today.
Interesting.
We're hot dog connoisseurs, but in any event, I
Mhm.
have one of those hot dogs waiting for me as soon as the show is
All right.
over.
Ah,
So
very
Well,
good.
as we say, or as we would say in the church, don't just eat a hot dog, eat the hell out of it.
so
Mhm.
perhaps Cowabunghole will be happy to know that I will be deep throating one of those hot dogs
Hmm.
when this show is
Yeah,
over.
but it won't
And
be coming back, at least by the avenue of entry.
Yes,
no, no.
it won't be entering, but it will be exiting hopefully tomorrow morning.
If this is something you would like to see live, dear audience, please join us in our after show chat.
Which
Although
hold
we're not
on a
going to
minute.
promise any kind of a demonstration.
I hope something isn't going to pop up in the middle of everybody's screen here when I open a
Oh
Word
dear.
document.
Oh
Up, is it?
no.
Where's
Yep.
it
Now,
opening?
now
Oh,
what's
oh.
popping? What's opening?
It's
Where
quite all right.
where'd it go? It's here
Hmm.
somewhere.
Well, I saw a flash of something
There
or
it is.
other. We may be subject to some sort of digital invasion.
Let's
No,
see.
no, no. Nothing to be alarmed about. Just
Very
a
good.
Aha,
momentary
here it
technical
is. Here
hiccup.
it is. I have it. It is. I'm going to give it to Dr. Hal and Professor Gofflin first because even they don't know this.
Ah, this is new. This is new information.
And
Thank
well, it's
you very
old
kindly.
information, but it's new information. So everything
Very
old
Is
is
good.
this
new
about
again.
the chat room?
Indeed.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We shall go to the chat room one way or other, and we hope that we'll find some of you watchers there if you haven't all dropped out because of a long show. It does get later, especially in other time zones, and we appreciate that.
And okay, audience. No, you throw any questions in now, we'll probably get them the next show because we'll do that I think once we did that, we had a question left over from a show came in after we had
Just
walked
to make
away.
sure, the request about the spontaneous hot dog up the keister thing was not a sponsored question, but more of
No.
a side note.
Yes, it was.
Yes, a
Yeah.
side note,
It
indeed.
might be sponsored in the future, so one should be prepared
True.
to answer it.
If anybody is feeling so inclined and wants to sponsor this fine question, you have the link in the chat.
And if anyone would
Hotly.
like to buy my book of short stories, How to Shove Hot Dogs Up Your Ass,
Oh, there's a dimension I
it's
didn't
for
know about.
sale on Amazon. Get the
Really? Well, I
hardcover.
don't like to use Amazon. I try to swear use
No,
Amazon.
Get the
yes.
hardcover and shove it up your ass.
Yeah, hardcover makes it even more difficult. Emergency rooms are full of people who experimented like this and went too far. Indeed, in my filmography, one of the movies I was in some way was called Barbie Nation. And long before the
Yeah.
Barbie movie made Barbie quite popular. The filmmaker Susan Stern made this movie about Barbie cultism and fanaticism, and also about how Barbie was conceived and the woman who created her and single-handedly saved Mattel from bankruptcy, which was then ruined when they went into making slot cars, which nobody bought. But in my portion of the movie, I was supposed to be an emergency room doctor, and x-rays of people's intestines were shown, which indicate that some people had been putting Barbie's head where the proverbial sun did not shine.
Well, better than losing the tiny shoes in there, I suppose.
No, it was just the head, but the head became lodged in the lower intestine. According to these x-rays, you can see it in the movie if you watched it. there's more in the movie than that, certainly. So let's close things off then and conclude our show. Then we'll see you in the chat room.
Flashlight, hell, help me find my keys and we'll drive out. Okay. Hey, that's a great Subgenius game. Just punchlines back and forth. Just the, just the punchlines.
Like Jeopardy, you offer the
Uh,
punchline and then
it's a
invite the
fun
other
game.
person to create the joke.
Anyway, audience, I put the chat link in the chat. Professor Gofflin and Dr. Hal, I put the chat link in your chat.
Very
And
good.
again, I want to remind you, please be patient because we sit here and watch the show to the end. We recommend that you do the same. And then once the show is over, then we flip the stage and we open everything up. But it takes us a second, so be patient.
I might as well ask, since I watched the end credits, of course, I'm still nervous when I see the end approaching, and if everything goes away, then I'll have no way to get to the chat room. So,
we're here, and you can always call me, or I can
yes,
drop you
I
an
know,
email.
but I was wondering, what if I just copied the chat room address and then put it in the header the usual way? Then I could watch till the very last second of the show.
I think so.
I believe so. That should
All right.
work.
Give it a try.
Well, there's always a way. It's easy when you know how. Thank you for clearing that up.
All right. Oh, okay. Bulldozer says, I sadly cannot attend the after party, but thank you for such a fascinating show. Thank you, Bulldozer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you once again for your kindness.
For
Thank you.
being here.
And audience, thank you for coming tonight. We hope to see you in the after show chat. We had a lot of fun doing the show, and we're going to do it again next month, December the 15th. So more about that in a minute. So
always the third Sunday of the month.
All right. Anybody have anything else before I push another button?
Not a word.
All right. Stay to the end. Here it comes. Please be sure to join us for the next live Ask Dr. Hal show, home edition, Sunday, December 15th, 2024, only on Twitch. Visit our website at AskDrHalShow.com for information on this as well as where to find previous episodes. From there, Dr. Hal is only a finger click away.
Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe, all mimsy with the borogroves, and the mome wraths outgrave. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome foe he sought, then rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal sword went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he came galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, thou beamish boy. O frabjous day, Callooh, Calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogroves, and the mome wraths outgrabe.